I'm Iris Baker in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada.
Nice.
And I've been with Mastering Alchemy since 2007. I was the group MA18. It's beyond putting into words. Like, it's such a huge experience. And it's so, even life-changing sounds ridiculous because it's like it takes you into a whole other way of being. So it's hard to put into words. But one little thing, for example, this is like after how many years is that from 2007 till now? This is probably the first year that I am able, like, as speaking to you, normally my way would be like they sent out a possible questionnaire for us to respond to, before we had the conversation. And my way would have been to control, be obsessive compulsive, get it all done, get it right, make sure I covered everything, make sure you could understand my whole experience. And then, so this is probably the first time ever in my life when I said, no, let me speak from the heart, see what wants to come up. And then when I would hear myself, on conferences with the Zooms with Jim, I would be talking fast and hard. Again, and it was just, and that's created a lot of arthritis in my body. And so now that's all dissipating. And I can actually feel, like, as soon as I start needing to fix, I can actually feel the acid pouring into my physical system. And I thought, oh, wow. So physically, it's a huge thing. But anytime I try to talk about, I'm always describing it in superlatives. And it's like the first week I started, it was, oh my God, what an experience. And so that every week, oh my God, continue. And it's still happening. And then when I went back, but that, in that time, we were mired in a lot more density than people are now. So I repeated level 2. And it was interesting to see how much easier the experience was for that group. That was by then group 53, and I was originally at 18. And it wasn't near the agony that we had to go through in those early years. And apparently the people 18 groups before us, it was much harder. So let's see. But I would share my experience of how I got started, because I hadn't been doing much. I was grieving at the time. My son had died, and we had been very close. But so anyway, but through the death of my son, I got involved with a group that then led me to a person who then led me to MA. But what happened is, first he shared a meditation with me. I had no idea where it was from. It was just a relaxation thing. And the first sentence was, find that place of I like me. And when I heard that word, I just melted into it. I didn't know it was by Jim or anything. It was a new experience for me. And then not long after that, another friend had forwarded me something really interesting and she had got it from the same guy who had given me that meditation. So I emailed him and said, I would be happy to have for you to share links with me of inspirational stuff. So he writes back and says, oh, I'd be glad to share inspirational and powerful things with you. And that word powerful, it started vibrating. I'd never had an experience like that. It started vibrating physically in my body. So for a whole week, I was feeling that word, and it was physical, the sensation, which is very unusual for me. And I emailed him back to tell him what was happening. And he says, oh, you need to do Mastering Alchemy. They work with the living words. And that was, and so from that moment, like, it's like, that's what I came to the planet to do. And it's been my whole life. So it's pretty, you can't just sum that up in a sentence, how it's affected things. Like, initially I thought what I was trying to do is learn how to be happy in the world as it was. I thought that would, and then I didn't realize, now I realize you can't find what you're looking for in 3D. So that love for yourself has to be central to everything. And that's like a lot of years in coming to get that. So then, so now I'm really aware I'm not trying to fix my circumstance. I'm just needing to step into the frequency that I want to experience right now. It's got nothing to do with my situation. So that's incredibly freeing. But I started just right now, I'm repeating year 1 of level 3. And like, so help me God, when I repeated level 2, it was just a phenomenal, because I couldn't hear any of it that first time around. And then all the clearing, I mean, we'd done so much clearing, so there was less of that. And it was just astonishing to me, that whole experience. But then this year I'm repeating level 1 of year 3. And I emailed Jim and said, it's like everything we've done to this point has been kindergarten. And now we're really starting the work. So it's, and I honestly don't think talking it to somebody is going to do it anyway. They're going to get it vibrationally from you. Doesn't matter what words you put out there. And if it's not for them, they won't feel it. And yet I feel like after all this time, I am not at all masterful with the rose, because it's way more than what we think it is. And I keep trying to get myself to get better at it. But it's it's always, you never feel masterful at this stuff. You're always just looking at the next thing you don't know. It's extremely practical and really gives you the tools you need to manage your life, to manage your energy field, to be happy, basically. And a lot of it is energetically, because when you're having the sessions, you're getting the downloads from all these higher beings. Like, and the most dramatic one, like sometimes you think, oh yeah, that's what they say. But when they downloaded when the Eye of Horus, so that's in the 6th chakra, the pineal gland, and the 7th chakra, they said with that download, don't even go there for 6 months. Like, don't even think. And so if I put my focus on my third eye in that period, I would just get nauseated. It was so powerful. Yet the back. So there's a lot of those kinds of things happening, as well as the practical that you can do. But it's also linking up with your higher self and running your life from more of who you are. Like, especially in the early days when we're still all wrapped up in our egos, you get there and and I tend to be a recluse, so it was really difficult for me to be around people, So that's probably one of the biggest things, is to not make every decision based on how it's going to look to other people. Like, to finally be so in yourself that you don't need validation from outside. And that's like a long time in coming for me, but it's still there. Like, I mean, I just obviously don't want you to judge me negatively when I'm speaking, but it's not such a huge control. It's not like the number one need in my life to impress you. And I think most of my life, every decision I've made was, how would it look to other people? So it's all that constant need for validation. What happens at the conference? So when you're in the foyer, and visiting and getting to know people, we're all in our 3D-ness. But when you're sitting there in a line, then the higher realms are connecting with you, and the Holy Spirit's actively engaged. And then everybody's energy, like, we created things that could not happen individually. There's a lot of really major shifts happened on the planet based on the energy of the group that was there. So again, it's pretty tough. And that's not the kind of stuff you're going to tell somebody who's thinking about dipping their toe into Mastering Alchemy. Like, I think they would run hearing that. But it's huge. I think his greatest gift is to come off looking just ordinary and pleasant. I mean, we would be so in awe if it's such a skill not to be made the hero of this work, right? When definitely he is. But he does, he's humble, but he's so incredibly gifted. And he takes all this higher realm stuff and makes it accessible to us energetically. He's so powerful, but you won't, you're never going to see any ego in him. But I'm astounded at what he can do, what he's done for us, because without him, none of this process could have happened, right? He's like what's the word? When you link something, he makes it possible. Even though it's not coming from him directly, it's coming through him. It's that very gift too, like the common thing he would say is, the answer comes where the question is asked. So we all have the ability to tune into the universe, and all the knowledge of the universe is available to us. But just like before this, talking to you, normally I would have wanted to control and plan everything I was going to say. I'm getting a little better at trusting what comes. But Jim knows, like, he's got access to all the universe I mean, I know it at an intellectual level, but I don't experience it. So he loves it when we ask questions that he's never heard before, because he gets information that he's never known before, because it just comes through him. And that's always astonishing. And he's so low key. I mean, really, what he does, I would speak in all these superlatives, but yeah, he's a nice guy is what I would say about him. And he's very funny. Like one time he says at a conference, sometimes I think I'm the funniest person I know, but that's usually how I feel about myself. So I thought he knows that that's in us. We don't see that in ourselves, but he knows we have that potential, right? There is no obligation at all to, if not even accept anything as true. You try it on and play. If it works for you, I would just say jump into level 1 and see how it feels. It's all based on how you're going to respond vibrationally. There's no truths and there's no facts and there's no, you don't have to accept anything. What I'm experiencing in my life at that moment, it seems like each session was designed just for me. Exactly what I need at that time and what I'm ready to, but obviously when you go back and hear it again, like there was so much there more than you could hear. So I'm finding it, you say oh, well, we're one with creator. Yeah, that's just words, right? And then when you finally have a moment of, oh yeah, we are, that's huge. Everything is the same words, but it keeps going to more and more depth of experience. But the tools are powerful at every level. Like they're the same tools, but you just get more and more adept at using them. What's really funny, and I almost think it's God-given, because when he's speaking, and I used to be a primary school teacher, so it's easy to be judgmental about people's grammar. And he says all this brilliant, deep stuff, but he'll get like the plural verb, and then not like he'll get little mismatches in his, which you would edit out if you were going to type it, or if somebody's speaking or reading his speech. But it's so or he has mispronounces certain words. And it's just ridiculous because this is like this genius guy, and I love it because I think it's designed to make us know he's human. But for me, it was different because there was never a moment of decision. It was like I wasn't looking for something. It came to me. It hit me physically, and I'm vibrating there. So there was no question for me at any point. And it was just, and everything I did was just right on. It was so exciting. Not easy, because when you're going through the process, every time you open up to more light, there'd be more, crap to leave the body. So, and especially with that first discussion group of level 2, everybody had a really hard time, because you'd reach a new level and then you have long periods of depression or just horrible things. And then, so it just gets easier and easier, but but I hate to say that because I don't want to scare anybody off, but they're probably already having the depression now. So I don't think it's a good way to get beyond it, but it's not easy. You have to put the time in. There was never a moment for me where I felt like, oh, I've got to work at this. It was like I was so keen to do it every minute. It was just, could never get enough of it because it was so magical. Like it was so powerful. When I had just retired and I was going to work for my son, manage his business when he died. So I got hit into this blank spot, like nothingness. It stayed like I had all these activities. I did a lot of theater and music and dance. And so when my son died, I quit all that. And I didn't, and he was my closest friend. And so there I was with this big, huge time of grief, and I had nothing to do but grieve. So that was a gift too, because I grieved hugely. And in that process, so he and I had just done a psychic healing, but I had never had psychic experiences or done a lot of, I grew up Catholic, very spiritual, but totally unaware of New Age kind of things at that point. So he and I had done a psychic healing course. And then after he died, there was a medium came to live in Nanaimo, and she was offering a workshop, but only to the people who had been in that particular psychic healing course. And I only did that because I wanted to learn mediumship to communicate with my son. And at that time, I was still so resistant that all of my learning came in dreams, because I was basically, but so what happened actually, the way I got the whole start is when he died, I couldn't focus on anything. And then my sister gave me this book called Quantum Theology. Do you know of that book at all? O'Murker was an Irish Catholic priest who is also knew quantum physics. And I'm sure if the Pope could have understood the book, he would have been excommunicated, because But what it did is it opened up, because I'm pretty left brain, right brain combination, but I was in, science and math were my thing, and music was my thing. But that led me but the book was so tough. I had to read every paragraph 3 times. Like first I'd have to read it just to understand the words, and then I'd have to read it to get the drift, and then I'd have to read it to get the implications. But it opened me up to this whole other world of energy. And so that got me into this group of the medium. So otherwise I couldn't have handled going to a mediumship group to learn how to be a medium, because I just didn't. But one of my experiences, like in the group, most people who come to those groups have had experiences. I had nothing. And so in the group, she would say at the end of the session, well, take a minute and bring in some information for the person beside you. And I'm thinking, oh God, so I was sitting there this one time, and it's my turn, and I was desperately shy most of my life. So that's gone. But I said, well, I can't. I said, I don't have anything for her. I said, all I'm seeing is this pillow. I just keep seeing this pillow. And the woman says, I haven't slept for 2 weeks. so I thought, oh, okay. So I started allowing. But I mean, so like probably if I hadn't had that physical reaction to the word powerful, I wouldn't have ended up in Mastering Alchemy. So I think everybody I almost think you don't even need to go recruiting. I think people find it, but that's maybe childish. So what happened then? So when I got into the mediumship group, the lady from that group got me into a group in town where is very powerful channeled. The Lords of Light are channeled, and a lot of light beings. So the person in that group was the one who gave me the mastering. So it was like this. Looks like a really carefully preset linear set of activities to get me to Mastering Alchemy. Yeah, another big change. Like this year is just like constant new awarenesses. And it's that whole thing, like to finally, especially when you are as obsessive as I am, and like I worked so hard at Mastering Alchemy, transcribing the lectures, and I wanted to get out. You wanted to use I'm big on the rational brain. But so finally, when I do the work now, and Jim says, just let it flow through you, I'm thinking, and I get it. Then these awarenesses come, and suddenly you have all these new awarenesses. But what I'm feeling now is the energy on the planet feels almost like a fog or a sludge, but in the air. And it's like all that 3D stuff, it's loosened up from the solidity of the earth, but it's everywhere. Like every time you hear the news, or every time you see people, or whatever, I'm realizing it's pervasive, but it's not solid anymore. And so that my job is not to fix it, but just to find that platform of stability and anchor it. So basically, my whole life is about what do I need to be happy in this moment. And I have total freedom. I have no time constrictions, and I'm not lacking for, I'm comfortable financially. I don't have to be working. So basically my whole life is about how do I hold more light. And to have, I every once in a while I think, well, what if I hadn't run into Mastering Out? But that's not true. I came here to run into it, so it would have always been there. I feel like I'm just at the beginning right now. So because basically really everything now feels like kindergarten, because you just gotta, learning how to add, never learned calculus, never learned how to do equations. Anyway, it's pretty exciting right now. It's been exciting all the time, but I think my tolerance for excitement keeps increasing. So it's like more exciting. And yet at the same time, because we start to know who we are, it's just a natural stepping. Of course, we are these great beings of light. If I hadn't thought that about myself 10 years ago, I would have had a heart attack. Like there's no way I could process that. Of course, we can communicate with archangels. Like, of course, the divine mothers are available to us, but in a very real, practical way, not like something. That was another thing too, is the direction with these energies is coming from, like before it would be me and my 3D self asking for help, and now it's more my higher self looking for direction. Another huge moment is that first chakra, and I did level 1 before, and I totally didn't get it. And this time, I'm not level 3, year 1, where you're shifting the chakras function so out of survival into well-being and vitality, and that's huge. So that, like, there's so many things I say, oh, if nothing else, that would be the big one. But like Jim always says, if you ask him what the most important things in Mastering Alchemy, it's the rose and the words. There's this process of spinning the energies and harmonizing with the higher realms. But initially, when I did it the first time, it was me from the rational mind, physical self, spinning to align with something beyond myself. And now I'm aligning with who I am. I'm not, there's this notion initially that it's little you here and you're asking some higher being for help. And then you realize that's me, that higher being. So that's pretty nice. But I get a lot of optimism from meeting people younger like yourself doing this work. Like, it's politically, I am so excited about where we're going to be going with this next generation. I thought that it was going to, when growing up with our generation, nobody ever said I love. My parents were there for us and they loved us, but they never told us. But we had no confidence. I was totally insecure, believing I was stupid all my whole life. I was in my 40s before I could acknowledge that I was intelligent. And I'm highly intelligent, as it turns out. But so I thought, okay, well, things just keep getting better. Then our kids will have more confidence. But instead, it goes to insanity with social media. I just thought, here we have all these. But there's another side. There's a lot of young people that I just enthralled with. They're so self-assured. They're so beautiful. They're loving. They're compassionate. So I think we're in for a good time.
Explore Mastering Alchemy and discover you. Find out more at masteringalchemy.com.